So in this tutorial, these are the activities we are going to perform. We are going to look at how to create directories, how to copy directories, how to move directories, how to rename directories, how to remove directories, and how to package or compress directories. So that's what we are going to look at now. So let me also say that the command that I'm going to use, I've already packaged everything into a bash script and it's available on my Patreon channel. So I will leave the link in the description box, so you can use that to download the script, as well as other scripts that I use for my YouTube tutorial. So just make sure to check the description box. You'll find the link there. So let's get started. So I'll shift to my terminal now. So let's see. Just if you can hear me, just give a thumbs up and then let's start. So I think I'm going to start now. Let's see. Okay, I think the audio is working, so we can proceed. Okay, so we are on the terminal now, so we will start with the exercise. So before we proceed, I would like you to try and then also get a Linux environment. And if you don't have a Linux system, there are online platforms that allow you to execute Linux command. I've covered some tutorials on that. I will leave the links to those videos in the description box after this live stream is done. So just stay tuned. Okay, so if you're on the Linux terminal, then welcome to the programming show. Okay, so on the terminal, the first thing I'll do is ls, just to see the content I have in my working directory. That's what I have now. Ls is probably one of the commands you are going to use a lot if you are working on a Linux environment. Okay, because you always want to list the contents of the directories that you are interested in. Okay, so this is my directory. Let me just show the graphical interface here. This is my directory. So it's called Linux. So this is where I'm working in. So whatever file that I'll generate will be in this directory. Whenever you are working on a project, whether bioinformatics project, data science, or any projects of that sort, it's advisable that you create a directory, and then in that directory you create your files, you write your bash scripts, you perform your analysis. So creating a directory and working in it's important because it helps you it prevents accidental modification of files. It also helps you to easily locate your files. So just make sure you create a working directory anytime you are working on a project. So let's get back to the terminal. Okay, so on the terminal, the first thing we are going to do is to create directories. So let's start. So to create a directory in Linux, you use the mkdir command. That's what I call it. So it's mkdir. And then you specify the name of the directory. So I'll create a directory called bioinformatics. I'll create it. So this is the bioinformatics directory. Okay. So aside this particular one, you can also create more than one directory. But before you even create a directory, I've created this, but I need to confirm that the directory is there. So this is where the ls command comes in. So I'll do an ls, and then I'm going to find this directory. And this is what I created. Okay. With the directory creation, you can create more than one directory using the mkdir command. Okay, so I can create more than one. So if let's say I want to create 2 directories, I can just say mkdir, then I specify my directory. So let's say I want to create a directory called DNA and another directory called RNA. I can specify all of them like this, and then I'll execute the command. So this will create the directory for me. Okay, so let's proceed. So I can do an ls, and I'm going to find the directories there. So I have these 2 which I just created, and this one which I created. So that is how we create directories in Linux. Another thing you should also take notes is that some people might be tempted to add a space character, which can be problematic in Linux environments. So if, let's say, you want to create a directory called variant colon, let's say make the variant colon, then that's how some of you may create it. But if you do it this way, the space character here will prevent you creating a directory with the name variant colon. There are ways to handle it, but as a beginner, I will advise you not to do that. So instead of a space character, you can use an underscore or a dash to also create the directory. So the dash or underscore will serve as your space, but I prefer to use underscore, so I will do it this way. And then I'll execute this command to create it. So it has been created. So I can do an ls again to check the directory, and that is what we have here. Okay, so now we have created our directories. Now, how do we copy directories? That's the next step. So let's look at how to copy directories. So if you are going to copy the directory, we use the cp command. But let's take a look at something here. You have your cp. Let's try this. Let's say DNA. Okay, now so before we go to the cp command, let me also say that you can create a directory within a directory. So that will be a subdirectory. Okay, so if, let's say, I want to create a directory called sequence in the DNA directory, I can say make the DNA/sequence. So now I can do an ls into DNA, and then I'm going to find that directory there. That's the sequence directory. So we can create a directory in another directory. Okay, so it's just a matter of you specifying the path, and then the directory will be created. Perfect. Now we are going to look at how to copy directories in a Linux system. So if you are going to copy a directory, you need to get a source. That's what you are copying, and then the targets. That's where you are copying to, or the destination. So if I want to copy a directory, then I will use the cp command. But let's look at something here. Let's say I want to copy this directory, DNA. I want to copy it into bioinformatics. If I do cp DNA and I say bioinformatics, let's execute it and see what happens. I'm going to get this error. Okay, because this is a directory. So if it's a directory, then you need to bring your -r. So that's what we are going to look at. So if I want to copy a directory, you need to also decide, or you need to also take into consideration what you are copying. Are you copying the directory together with everything in that directory? I mean, all the subdirectories, all files in that directory, or you are copying just a file or a directory in that main directory. So let's say you want to copy this directory and everything in it. Then I'll say cp-r, and then I say DNA, and then I will specify where I'm copying to. That'll be bioinformatics. So it has been copied. So now I can do an ls, and I'm going to find the DNA directory there. You can also copy and then rename. Okay, let's just clear the screen and then just continue from here. So I can copy and rename the directory. So if, let's say, I want to copy the directory and then rename it, I can just say cp-r DNA, and then where I'm copying to, this is bioinformatics, I'll have to specify another name. So let's say DNA2. So I'll execute this command. So if I do this, then I'm going to get another directory. So I'll say ls bioinformatics, and I'm going to get DNA2. Okay, because now we have copied and then renamed it. So this is another way. So instead of maybe trying to delete what's already there before copying, you can just copy and then rename. Okay, so that's how we copy and then rename. Now let's look at something here. I am going to copy this DNA again into bioinformatics. I already have this file there, this directory there. So let's say cp DNA into bioinformatics. Okay, so here we have to add a -r because it's a directory. So I'll copy it now. Okay, let's do an ls. Now we had earlier on copied the directory. We had earlier on copied the directory. Okay, I repeat. We had earlier on copied this DNA directory, and now we are copying it again. So this is something that sometimes can happen. And if it happens, then it's possible that files will be overwritten. Okay, so you should be careful what you are copying and where you are copying to. So if, let's say, the file you are copying to or the directory you are copying to, another directory has the same name there, then it's advisable you just copy and then rename, like what I did here. Or you just remove this directory, or you just copy to a different directory. Okay, so before you even copy, you can just do an ls first, like I did here, to see the contents in the destination directory where you are copying to, so that you are sure that there are no directories with the name or with the same name as what you are copying. Okay, so it's important you also check that to avoid modifying files. Okay, so always use the ls to check and make sure that your directories have unique names. Or you can also add extra characters, like maybe version 1, version 2, version 3, etc., just to make sure you have unique names so that you don't modify or delete files accidentally. Okay, let's go. You can also copy subdirectories. Okay, so if let's do an ls again, let's say DNA. If let's say I want to copy this directory, which is in DNA, then I don't need to do cp-r DNA. I can just go straight to that directory. So I can say cp-r DNA/sequence. And then I copy it to bioinformatics. So now if I do an ls into bioinformatics, I'm going to find the sequence directory there. So if we are going to copy just a subdirectory, then you don't need to copy the entire directory because you end up generating files which you don't need. You can just go straight and then copy that subdirectory, like what I did here. If there's a file already there and that's what you want to copy, you can also do that. Let's create a file. Let's say touch DNA sequence.txt. So if it's a file, that one you can just say cp DNA/sequence.txt, and then you just place it in the bioinformatics directory. So now if I do an ls, I'm going to find it's there. Let me just see. It's ls bioinformatics. So I'm going to find a file there. Okay, so once you do it this way, then it becomes good. So now we have learned how to also copy files and how to copy and then rename. Now let's look at something here. Let's look at this. It's important we deal with this. Let's ls into DNA again. Let's create 2 more files in this DNA directory. So I will just say touch DNA/file.txt. I'll create another one. I'll say touch DNA/sequence.fa. Let's ls again here. Now I have what? I have these files. I have this, I have this, I have this. Now if let's say I want to copy some files, let's say I want to copy just this and then this, then of course you can do it this way. You can say cp DNA sequence.txt DNA file.txt, and then you specify destination. Let's say // to copy to our current directory. That is possible. But then if you, let's say you have hundreds of files, then this is where some tricks also come in handy. You'll notice that these files all end with .txt. Okay, so another strategy you can use to copy these files is to just say cp dna star.txt, and then I'll place it in another directory. So this time let me place it in irony. So I'll say irony. Okay, so this has been copied. It's simple. So you notice how this one has been done. This is much simpler than what this one here. Okay, and this one also, if you have lots of files and you're using this approach, you can make mistakes, but this one is just straightforward. So why are we able to do this? This is because these files have something in common. They all end with .txt. So that's what I did here. So the star here indicates that we want all files that have their names ending with .txt. Okay, so this is where naming conventions come in handy. Okay, so if you have a good naming convention, then it becomes easy to manage your files, manage your directories, and even process them. Okay, so this time, because I had these files ending with .txt, I was able to just use this command. You can do that with your FASTA sequences, your FASTA files, your GenBank files, your FASTQ files. If you have a good naming convention, then it becomes easy to move these files, copy them, process them, and do all stuffs with them. Okay, so this is just a demonstration to show you how the naming conventions can also come in handy when managing directories or files. But for naming convention, I will cover that in details in another tutorial. But if you have files which you have issues or you have challenges managing or processing them, you can always reach out to me and then we can work out something together. So let's pray. So this is another way. So this is how we copy directories and then files for that matter. Perfect. So let's proceed. Now we are done with creating of files. We've also copied creating of directories. We've also copied directories. So now let's look at how we can move files. You'll notice that whatever we did, we were just copying. So we're making a copy. So how do we move files? Okay, so moving here in Windows terms, we will say cut. Okay, cuts and then pastes. So for Windows users, if you don't know what the move command is, it's just basically a cut and paste. That's the Windows equivalent. So how do we move files? Let's just clear the screen. Let's do an ls to see what we have here. Now let's create another directory. Let's just say media sequence. Let's do an ls. So let's say I want to move this. Okay, let's just start with the directory because the topic for today is about directories. So if let's say I want to move a directory, just like this, let's say I want to move this DNA to sequence. I can say mv and then I'll say DNA and then I'll move to sequence. So now if I do an ls, DNA is no longer there. It's in the sequence directory. So ls into sequence, and we're going to find it's there. Okay, so this is how we move directories. Here we moved it, but here we can also move and rename. Okay, so let's do this. This time let's look at the bioinformatics directory here. Okay, so I just typed this, so it's ls bioinformatics. So let's say I want to move this directory DNA and then rename it. I can just say mv bioinformatics /DNA and then I can say sequence /DNA2. So I have moved it. So I'll do an ls into bioinformatics. It's no longer there, but ls sequence, you find it. So there's it. Okay, don't let this confuse. So this was already there, but now it's here. Let's try something else. Again, so let's just say irony. Let's move it. So I can say mv irony sequence / let's say irony2. So it's gone. So ls sequence, you'll find it there, irony2. So this is how we move files. So we use the mv command to do that. The same mv command can be used to rename files. So if let's say I want to rename this file, or let me just use sequence. Maybe you already have the sample ID, you want to rename it. You can just say mvin. It's basically the same thing. So if, yeah, so this is my current working directory. So if let's say I want to rename it and place it in the same directory, so that's why we do mvin sequence.txt, and then I can say maybe sample 23.txt. So this time if I do an ls, I'm not going to find sequence.txt, I'll find sample 23.txt because I have renamed it. So first we moved and renamed, but now we are just renaming it. So that's how we rename files. Okay, and then directories. Let's also try to rename this directory. So to rename directory, I can just say mv variant colon, let's say variants. So if I do an ls, I'm going to find variants. So that has also been done. Okay, so this is how we rename directories. Okay, so now we have moved directories, we have also renamed directories. Now let's look at something else. How do we remove directories? Okay, so remover here, I'm referring to deleting directories. So how do we remove directories? That's what we are going to do next. So if we are going to remove directories, we use the rm da command. Okay, now let me show you something here. Let's do an ls. Let's create a directory first. Let's say make that let's say .1. I have this directory. Now if you are going to remove a directory, you can say rm da. Let's remove this. So if I do an ls, it's no longer there. You should be careful when using the rm da command, because when you remove directories or files in Linux, it's an irreversible process. So you should be careful what you are removing. Okay, so rm da has been used to remove the directory. Now let's try this. Let's try with the sequence directory. Rm da sequence. We have this. It says rm da failed to remove sequence, directory not empty. Okay, so this rm da command is used if your directory is empty, like what we had here. That1 was empty because there was nothing in that directory. We just created, there was nothing in there. Let's just create it again. Let's do an ls into it. There's nothing in there. That is why the rm da command worked. But here, sequence, there are files and there are directories in there. So let's say ls sequence. We have some directories there. So if you have some files or directories in that directory that you want to remove or delete, then that's how we do it. Okay, so in other words, if you are removing non-empty directories, then we use rm-fr. That is what I use, but other people will add some flags, but this is what I use and it works. So I'll say rm-fr. So it's a recursive operation. I'll say sequence, and then that's it. So now if I do an ls, it's gone. So for non-empty directories, you have to use rm-fr. For empty directories, rm-da will work fine for you. Okay, so let's see if we have some chats here. Okay, okay, we have some people joining. That's great. Okay, so just enjoy the show. You can also place in your comments or your suggestions, and then we will try to work it out. Okay, so let's go. So we have removed directories. Okay, again, you can use the wildcard and all those stuffs also to, do some complex or advanced activities when it comes to removing files. But that's something that's, I think I'll cover in another tutorial for advanced users. But for now, as a beginner, I just use some of these commands and then you'll be fine. You can also remove files and subdirectories. So let's say variants. Let's create another directory and let's make that variants. Let's say that1. I can say rm-variants/that1. and it will be removed. Okay, because what we created in this one, it's an empty directory, so we can remove using this command. If it wasn't empty, then you have to use rm-fr. So let's just try this. Let's say make the variant slash the one again. Let's say touch variant slash the one slash sequence.txt. Let's ls into it first, variant slash the ones to see this. So now, because this directory is not empty, I have to use rm-fr and say variant slash the one. You can add the slash also, it's fine, and then you can remove that. So that is also done. Okay, if you want to remove everything in that directory without the directory itself, that's where the star comes in, or other patterns come in. But this is something that I will skip for now, because I want to be careful here when it comes to the rm command. But for advanced users, advanced programmers, it's something that you can always try. But I'll always advise you, when using the rm and the rm commands, you should always know what you are doing. That's basically what I'm going to say. Okay, so let's continue. So now we have also removed directories. Now let's look at the last one, which is packaging and compressing directories. This is something that you also have to learn, because sometimes you perform your analysis, the results, the outputs will all be in a single directory. Maybe you'll be working on an HPC cluster, you want to download all these files. And so a good way of downloading all these files is to first packaging all of them. So more like compressing them or zipping them. Okay, so let's try this. Let's say, let's do an ls. Let's say bioinformatics. Okay, we have everything. Let's say we've done our analysis. Everything here, we need it. We want to copy them, or we want to even distribute them. Okay, of course you can say cp-r and then copy bioinformatics. But then a better way to do this is to just compress everything into a single file. So I'll show you two approaches. Let's use the first one, which is zip. So to package or to compress a directory or a file, you can do for both directory and then a file. You can use the zip. So if you are zipping, let's use zip. So I can say zip, and because this is a directory and I have some files in them, I'll say zip-r. Okay, again, let me go over. If you want to package or compress directories or files using the zip command, then you use zip. And if it's a directory like bioinformatics, which is this one, that's this one here, then you add -r, and then you can specify the output name. So let's just say I want to use this one, outputs. This will be the output name. So this will be the name of the file that will be generated. I'll just leave it like this, and then I'll specify the directory, which is bioinformatics. Then I'll execute this command. Okay, so now if I do an ls, I'm going to find a file called output.zip. Okay, this zip file has everything I need. Okay, so this one I can just download it because now it's a single file, so I can download to my PC and then I will just unzip it. So if you want to unzip, it's just unzip command and then you just use this. Now let's try this. Let me create a directory called results. Let me just copy the output.zip into it, and I'll show you how to unzip. So let's see, let me cd into it first. Let me do an ls here. So if I want to unzip a file, if I want to decompress it, I want to uncompress it, and it's a zip file, then I just say unzip output.zip. So if I do an ls, I'm going to find it there. So in this directory, I'm going to find whatever I need there. Okay, so this is one way to package or compress directories and also decompress or uncompress them. Now let's cd back to our main directory and then continue. So the zip command is one way to use to package or compress directories or files. Okay, let's try what's a file also. So zip, let's say let me just let's say out file, and then I'll just say file.txt. So I will do an ls. I'm going to find it there. Out file, that is here. Okay, so there's also another way to do. So if this is a file like this, then you don't need a -r. You just call the zip, and then you just specify the output file and then the file itself. But if you have directories, then you need to use the -r. So you also notice that if you are downloading a reference genome, for example in UCI or NCBI or refseq, you realize that some of the files will have .zip or .gz. Okay, they will come in different extensions. Some will come with .zip, some will come with .gz, but these are all compressed, so you just need to decompress them. And sometimes you realize that when you uncompress or when you extract the contents, the file sizes become bigger. Okay, so when you compress them, then it saves space. It saves you some space. Okay, so compressing it makes it easy for you to distribute them without using much space. So that's why you have to do that, and it also makes it convenient for you so that you don't end up accidentally modifying files. Now let's look at another way to package and then compress files. Okay, so you can use the tar command. Okay, so if I want to package or compress files using the tar command, let's just try with the bioinformatics again. I can just say tar, and I'll say -zcvf. I want to compress as a tarball, so I have .tar.gz, and then I specify my output file name. So this time, let's say results. Okay, let's use a different one. Let's say analysis, and then I specify the directory that I want. Okay, the directory of interest, which is this one. I am packaging the bioinformatics directory, or let's use a different one. Let's say variant. Okay, so that we have some variability. So I'll say variant, and then I'll execute it. So now if I do an ls, I'm going to find it's there. Let's just check. It should be somewhere there. Okay, let me just do it here. Let me try this. Okay, perfect. I think there was, let's just do it again because I forgot to add an extension, so I'll just do it again. I'll undo everything I did and then just do it again. So if I want to package or compress files or directories using the tar command, then I have to use tar-z-cvf, and then I specify the output file name. So I'll say analysis.tar.gz. I need to specify everything, including the extension. With the zip command, we did not specify an extension, but here we have to do that. So I'll do this, and then I'll also indicate the directory of interest, which is variants, and I'll execute this command. So now it's done. So if I do an ls, I'm going to find this directory there. Okay, that's what I have. Okay, so this is another way to also package or compress files. Now if I want to extract the content from this, let's just copy to another. Let's say make that two. Let's copy this into it. That's that too. Let's cd into it first. If let's say I want to decompress, I've already covered this a number of times in my tutorials, but let's do it here. If I want to decompress or extract the contents, I'll say tar. Yeah, I'll say tar. Let me just do again. So if I want to decompress it, I want to extract the content, I'll just say tar xvfz, and then I'll specify it here, and then I'll execute the command. So if I do an ls, I'm going to find this here. So notice the difference here. It was xvfz, here it was zcvf. Okay, so basically the difference is the c and then the v. Okay, no, not the C, the X, sorry, the X and then the C. So the C is for what? Compressing. X, we are extracting. That's the difference. But you can always check the manual online and then look at different ways of doing it. So that's about it. Perfect. So that's what we have with the managing of directories. And I think every beginner, if you're a beginner in the field of Linux, that's one of the things you always have to learn, because you are going to handle lots of files, and then you need to be able to find your way on the Linux system. You need to be able to manage these files, copy, remove, distribute. So it's important to learn how to manage that. So that's what we've done here. So I'll try and cover some advanced concepts, but now whatever I'm doing now is for beginners. So just make sure to learn and then practice. So let's look at our directory here, and you can see that we have all the files there. So we've been doing everything on the command line, but then you can also view them using your file manager. If it's not on an HPC cluster, and then you find all these files there. Okay, so all these things you can also package them and then just distribute them as well. So that'll be all for this tutorial. So if you also have any suggestion or any comments, just put them in the chat box or in the comment section, and then other people will also try and then learn from it. So that'll be all for this tutorial. Tomorrow we are going to look at R programming. So there will be a live streaming for R as well. So R for bioinformatics beginners level. So in tomorrow's video, we are going to look at how to display strings or characters on the screen. It's something that you also have to learn. Last week we covered how to create and then combine characters or strings. So tomorrow we will continue. We are going to look at how to print or display characters. So just join me tomorrow also for the live stream. Okay, and then check the description box. You'll find some useful tutorials there. So thank you all for watching this tutorial, and then I'll see you tomorrow.